The girl was startled to discover that her boss was wearing her employee badge, so she quickly steered him into the elevator and pointed out that they had mistakenly swapped identification tags. The boss exchanged badges with her on the spot. The reason each of them had ended up with the other's badge was because they were, in fact, a recently married couple who had been carefully concealing their relationship from everyone around them. At the company, the girl served only as her husband's personal secretary. One afternoon, a coworker noticed the expensive diamond ring sitting on the girl's finger. The girl quickly brushed it off, claiming it was nothing more than a cheap imitation, even though she knew perfectly well that it was actually the least valuable ring she owned. When they had gotten married, her husband had presented her with 40 rings, but she never dared let her coworkers know the truth about who her husband really was. Shortly after, the boss arrived at the office, and the girl immediately stood up to greet him properly, all while knowing that within the walls of that building, she could only admire her own husband from across the room like a distant stranger. After the workday ended, she stepped outside and noticed that all of her coworkers had someone waiting to take them home. The quiet loneliness that settled over her was sharp and unexpected. She wanted to call her husband and ask him to pick her up, but she already knew he was buried in work every single day and that they barely exchanged more than a few words with each other after returning home each night. The girl had come to feel that in the first year of their marriage, her husband had been nothing more than a robot sharing her space, and she had slowly grown accustomed to the coldness he directed at her. That particular morning had begun like every other, with the two of them sitting down to breakfast together, when he suddenly slid a gift across the table toward her. He told her quietly that he never gave her anything fake. The girl immediately explained that her comment the day before about the ring being imitation had only been said to avoid drawing unwanted attention. When she lifted the lid of the gift box and found a brand new ring nestled inside, it hit her that her husband was occasionally capable of small, tender gestures. As they were both preparing to leave for work that morning, the girl had picked up the wrong employee badge by accident. Even though the couple commuted at the same time, they deliberately arrived at the company in separate vehicles to avoid raising suspicion. Once at the office, the girl went through her usual routine of organizing documents for her boss when she walked toward the elevator to greet him as he arrived. That was when she spotted her own badge clipped to his jacket, which brought the story right back to where it had begun. Later that day, the girl accompanied her boss to a meeting with a client. Throughout the entire session, she worked in perfect harmony with him, so naturally that when she saw him reach up to remove his glasses, she had already pulled out a glasses cloth and placed it in his hand before he could even ask. When the meeting wrapped up, one of her coworkers commented on how well she seemed to understand the boss. The truth was simple. She understood every single one of his habits because she had always been deeply in love with her husband. Then an accident broke out on the floor below while workers were handling cargo. The boss instinctively lurched forward to rush toward his wife and shield her, but something his father had once told him stopped him cold. In the end, he was forced to stand by and watch helplessly as cargo crushed his wife's hand. Afterward, he told her to take the rest of the afternoon off and have her hand looked at by a doctor. The wife had also started to pick up on something. Her husband seemed to be going out of his way to keep a deliberate distance between them.
That evening, when she got home and discovered her husband had prepared spaghetti, which she had never liked, she was overcome by a sudden wave of frustration and walked out of the house without a word. The husband was genuinely baffled by her abrupt change of mood. The following morning at the company, he brought her a cup of ginger tea, assuming that her irritability the previous evening had simply been because of her menstrual cycle. Later that same day, while the girl was in the middle of her work, a client deliberately picked apart her performance in front of everyone in